Okay, welcome everyone. I see people still filling into the meeting, into the webinar, but it's 2 minutes past now, so we will kick off. So my name is Kiersten Snoad. I'm the WASH Innovation Consultant with the UNICEF Sanitation and Hygiene team in New York, and I work with the Duke UNICEF Innovation Accelerator. And following our opening yesterday, we're kicking off with our first session of the virtual forum on social innovation. And the focus of this session is on the art of selling WASH. This forum is organized by the Duke UNICEF Innovation Accelerator. It's a unique partnership that brings together Duke's expertise in innovation and social entrepreneurship with UNICEF's expertise in WASH, with support from UNICEF USA, to support promising sanitation, hygiene, and menstrual hygiene innovators to grow and scale their impact. The focus of this session is on the art of selling WASH. We have a variety of profiles here today, including innovators from the accelerator, staff from UNICEF, and external colleagues. Many WASH services are delivered by the private sector, from whether it's households building their own toilets, to buying hand washing facilities, soap, or sanitary pads. And all of these items are purchased directly by households, by consumers. And for many WASH products and services, including, say, toilets, the ability to sell and sell well can make a critical difference to the success of the project and the impact that can be achieved. But how often do we talk about sales and building sales capacity and the art of selling WASH? And that's the purpose of today's session. We're very fortunate to be joined by several experts in this field, from IDE, both IDE and the Whitten Roy partnership, and later we will also hear from some of our innovators. We're going to start with Scott. Scott Roy is a co-founder of the international sales consultancy, the Whitten and Roy Partnership, a leading expert in utilizing market-based approaches in development contexts. They have a global consultant network in over 40 countries, and they've worked with organizations in over 40 countries to help them sell, including IDE and PSI market-based sanitation programs. He's also a best-selling author, along with his business partner, Whitten, and has written 2 books, Decision Intelligence Selling and Sell Well, Do Good, which is aimed at social enterprises. So with that, Scott, I will pass over to you.
Great, thank you, Kiersten, and thank you to Duke University and to UNICEF for hosting this event and for inviting me to speak today. Today I'm going to talk about selling well to do good. And first I want to share some opening thoughts about selling, and then get into what most people think selling is, and finally share with you what we've discovered about the DNA of how to sell well. Selling has been my lifelong pursuit. I was a lucky person. I was trained by one of the best companies in America how to sell well and how to sell ethically, obviously very important in this arena. And I was trained how to put my customer at the center of things, really decades before I'd even heard the term human-centered. And so I was also trained to treat people I hired, treat them well, to coach and develop them into high performers, and had a chance to do that with over 1,000 salespeople in my career. And so I spent about 30 years doing it for that company, and then a new company that I built from scratch with my other business partners, and then went into consulting about 15 years ago to help other companies develop their sales capabilities with my business partner, Roy Whitten. Actually, to be honest with you, I wasn't prepared for what I was about to find in the arena. And for the past 15 years since I've been a sales consultant, I've seen a lot of bad sales, quite frankly, and really shocking sales management practices. And it's really pretty amazing to think that my first 30 years in sales was generally filled with positive experiences around sales, only to be faced with the fact that the way that the rest of the world does selling, which is generally very self-centered and not human-centered, was the reality. And doing right by the customer, believing in people you hire, training them in how to think and act while they're selling, and developing them to be great performers has largely been replaced with poor selling and poor training intense pressure to hit sales targets, underdeveloped management practices, and general ignorance about how to build a successful sales team. And so unfortunately, I'm talking about selling also that's done in the development sector. And so, so at WRP, I can say that we're on a mission to develop the art of selling around the world, especially in the development context. Selling, can be an art. It can be a beautiful creation, but it requires knowledge. It requires an investment of time, an investment of money, and it also requires a lot of diligence and commitment to create it. So what we've discovered is that pretty much it comes down to how you think about sales. First, your attitude about selling, which then leads to how you actually sell to your customers. For example, when I first got into this back in 2007, I was in Cambodia working on a volunteer project with VSO, Voluntary Service Overseas, you may be familiar with. And I met a guy named Mike Roberts, who just happened to be the country director for International Development Enterprises, or IDE, who's also on this program. And he said to me, he said, sales to me is like a black box. And basically, he didn't really understand it. And, faced with the changes in philanthropy and the way grant funding was being done, and where they were being required to learn how to sell and to learn how to sell products rather than give things away, he really didn't understand that. And as the leader of his team, he was smart enough to see the downstream repercussions of this void of knowledge that he had. And so it was Mike who actually helped me discover that selling was being applied to development, which I didn't know before I went to Cambodia. And what that's led to is us working in, as Kiersten said earlier, over 40 countries around the world in the development space, another 20 or so in the commercial space. And well over 100 of these projects we've worked on in these countries, out of about 420 we've done, have been in water and sanitation. And it all started 11 years ago, actually working with Hydrologic, which is an award-winning social enterprise for clean water, and also IDE's award-winning sanitation marketing program in Cambodia, which arguably is one of the most successful in the world. And working with them, starting with them, and working with many organizations since then. Just on a personal note, I've just come back from Cambodia after having been there for 5 weeks, and I was out on the Tonle Sap Lake working on what's called a green project, and working in analyzing and assessing how toilets and latrines can be sold in floating villages and very difficult water soaked areas, as well as how can they sell more water filters to families. So I've just flown back, and I'm a little jet lagged, but I'm okay this morning. So it seems. So today I want to touch on these two topics, which are starting points for building great selling cultures that will uphold people who sell, and also, of course, the people who are our customers, the people who buy, because both are really important that we tend to. Okay. And there's more to selling that I think than meets the eye. I think a lot of times development professionals come in, and since they don't understand it well, it's very easy just to overlook it or just think someone else will take care of it. But I think it's incredibly important for organizations to really face up to the fact that if they're going to be bringing and selling in order to do good in the world, it behooves you to really learn about selling and about why selling is the way it is when it's done well, and what causes selling to be done poorly. So, first of all, let's talk about the attitude towards selling. And this is something I'd ask you to just sort of individually look at your own self and what your sort of attitude was about selling and sales before you got into this or got onto this webinar for that matter. Because what I've found as a professional in this, and again, I've been in it all my life. I'm 64 years old, so it's something almost 45 years I've been in sales and sales management, and then consulting. But around the world, I found that people believe that selling is really almost a dirty word. It's about talking people into buying stuff that they neither need nor want, for that matter. They, people have images of arm twisting salesmen and people who force people to buy, and at worst, they're con artists. And so you think about the way that we think about salespeople in our society. For example, in the movies, I'd be interested to find one movie that actually portrays salespeople in a positive light. But normally you see movies like Glengarry Glen Ross or Tin Men or The Boiler Room or Death of a Salesman, which is by Arthur Miller. And each of these really portrays salespeople as just really almost the scum of the earth. And, then, of course, you've got the expressions that we've all heard before, at least in America. She could sell ice to Eskimos, meaning, yeah, how insincere would that be? Or salespeople speak with a forked tongue. I've heard that one before many times. Or jokes, how do you know when a salesperson is lying? Well, his lips are moving, right? And probably the one that takes the cake for me was when I first got into this. This is back in 2010 or 2011, when I was working with IDE in Cambodia. They just completed their pilot and they wanted me to come in. They were just about ready to scale up. They raised $8 million. They were going to do a 3-year scale up to sell 70,000 toilets or something like that at a minimum. And they asked me to come in and do a field study and to give them feedback on what they needed to do in order to arrange their sales organization so it would perform well. So I went in the field and I really enjoyed it. I was in there for about 5 days. And one of the things, I had several comments that happened along the way that helped me put the puzzle together. And finally, I faced into the Cambodian sales manager who was in charge of the whole project. And I said, such and such, I won't say his name, obviously, but such and such, I found some things out in the field that I was a little worried about. And that is, it sounded like, people were not telling complete truth out there when they were out there selling. And he looked at me and he said, well, you have to lie to sell. And I mean, talk about the hair standing up on end on my head. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I heard that out of his mouth. And so basically I'd negotiated with afterwards with IDE. And I said, look, if you want me on this project, that's not going to happen. Either this guy changes his attitude or we're no longer going to be working together. And fortunately, he said, well, listen, I'll give it a shot. And so I said, okay, well, let's do it, and sure enough, he ended up being an amazing sales manager and really actually learned that you can sell well and you can be honest by doing that. So, I know that a lot of people that work in development, in fact, I've been in the business for over 10 years, just working in the development side. And just about the last thing that they wanted to hear back many years ago, I think, was that market-based solutions and private sector approaches were now going to be brought in to help, solve poverty. Because applying business and social enterprise and selling to help the poor, well, it's hard to sort of put that together when you have beliefs that selling is really sort of a disingenuous, disgusting occupation. So, so the question is, how can you possibly put selling and development together? So, as I'm making these comments, I don't want to, turn anybody off from selling or to think that I'm negative about this. I'm not. I'm very positive about selling. What I'm negative about is bad selling. Okay. And right from the top of the organization all the way down to the frontline salesperson, if your core beliefs about selling are, that salespeople are disingenuous and are just out for themselves, or that, selling is about stretching the truth and even lying, or that telling the customer what they want to hear is the way you go about selling, even if it's not true, or you do whatever it takes to sell, or what most people actually believe is that selling is all about pitching and convincing people to buy something that you have. That's what I was raised thinking. My dad was in sales. It's all about talking people into it and not listening. But you see, the thing is that the way we look at sales is very different, because I was trained differently than that, and the fact is that if you could actually sell in a way that's different, really, really radically different. And in fact, it could be something that you'd be really proud of, saying, this is what we do in our program, or this is what I do professionally. I would hope that you would say, yeah, I want to hear about that. So let me tell you a little bit about DQ and what we call DQ selling, because we developed this for our business clients in London in the first 5 years that we ran our consultancy before we got involved in the developing world. And truthfully, we were applying it to business selling, but we soon discovered that it could be applied to any kind of selling. So let me tell you about DQ. DQ stands for decision intelligence, okay? Like IQ, it's a measure of intellect, and EQ, for example, is a measure of emotional intelligence. DQ is about how to develop the customer's intelligence about how to make good buying decisions. It's a customer-centric model, something that Jocelyn Wyatt, the CEO of IDEO.org, meant when she said that on our book, she endorsed it, saying that Scott and Roy have applied human-centered selling to design. Excuse me, human-centered design to selling, pardon me. So what I want to do is I want to share with you the model, because I really truly believe that this is at the heart of the art of selling and selling to be proud of, okay? And it's what we've written in our latest book, which is Sell Well, Do Good. It's designed for the selling that's done in the developing world. It's the very same kind of selling that we help clients do when they actually work with us in the field. So what I'd like to do is share my screen, and I'm going to go to PowerPoint just to help explain the model a little bit, and then share with you what we think good selling really looks like in order to create selling into an art, something that you can be proud of, and something that really is something that you can look at and say, I'm looking forward to doing this with my teams. So on the screen, you'll see basically an XY axis, like you'd learned back in school, where the difference is the Y-axis is pointing downwards. So basically, these are two axes that basically lay out the proposition here, and that is that basically DQ selling is about starting with the problem, not starting with the solution. And in order to be successful at selling, you've got to explore these two subjects in the appropriate order. So first, on the problem axis, we want to really dive into the problem that a client has. So instead of hearing, for example, oh, I've got this great product, I've got a great toilet, let me tell you why you want to own it and why it's great and it's made of the best concrete or whatever it might be, or for that matter, a water filter, saying, hey, we have got the newest, the greatest, the best water filter on the market. It takes all the E. coli out. It takes out, arsenic. It takes out everything. And in fact, it's a great price for you. It's reasonably priced, et cetera. We think that's the wrong place to start, quite frankly, because really selling starts with a problem. That's the reason we're using sales to begin with in the developing world. And that is because we need to help people understand the problems they have at a much deeper level so that it motivates them to want to do something about it. We all know that in the developing world and the kind of work that we're all involved in is that it's important because of behavior change. You can't just sell something quickly and then expect people to go ahead and change the behavior. And unfortunately, when it is sold quickly, when it is sold by a pitch and people buy it without really considering what they're buying at a deep level, then oftentimes people will not end up using it in the way that we want them to use it. So back to the model. Basically, on the problem axis, there are two subjects that we explore. One is the problem, and the second is the cost of the problem. So what we want to do is we want to spend 10, 12, 15 minutes actually on these subjects, maybe even 20 or 25 minutes on a product that is fairly low priced, and we want to make 20 or 30 presentations in a day. And so basically we literally do this not by pitching people about the problems they have, but asking them about the problems they have. So for example, it starts with the situation they have. So tell me about the way you get your drinking water, or tell me about how you use the bathroom, and so you starts there and say, what are the challenges that come with that? I see. And so what you're saying is everyone goes out in the water and then they just poop in the water and then it's in the water. Well, what are some of the challenges that you face with that? You say, and it's a very consultative type of methodology that really where the problems come from the customer, not from us, you say. And that's one of the key things in DQ selling. This would be true also, by the way, if we're selling in central London to a major corporation on a $100 million deal. It's the same process, is we need to engage a client in the challenges and problems they're facing, even though they may not fully appreciate the depth or the gravity of those problems. So that's on the problem axis. On the solution axis is once you've really bottomed out the problem and you've actually calculated the cost of the problem in dollars and cents, if at all possible, then you can move to the solution axis, which is then looking at what is the best solution, and then secondly, what is the value of that solution. So we always teach people is that once you've gone through steps 1 and 2, we always ask people at that point, is the problem serious enough, and is it costing you enough that you want to do something about it? You see, so this is about raising their decision intelligence by helping raise the awareness of the problems that they're facing and what those problems are actually costing them. You know, it's amazing. I was just in the field literally last week and the week before in Cambodia, and we were working with people calculating the cost of buying bottled drinking water as opposed to owning a filter. And people were absolutely blown away by how much money they're spending in just a year, and then rolling it up over 4 years for the life of the filter. And so, you know, when you all of a sudden they become aware of the problem and the cost of it, then all of a sudden, you know, they may be interested in a solution. If at that point they say, no, not really, well, then we would stop. We literally stop there. We don't try to sell somebody on something that they don't really need or want. Okay. So now I want to share with you about what we mean by DQ. So each of these arrows, basically, we put a scale of 0 to 10. Okay. And so 10 being high, you know, understanding the problem, cost, problem, solution, value, solution. And if a client explores those issues in that order and they can get it to a level of 10, then they've formed a DQ of what we call 100. And that's as good as it gets. And when people form a DQ of 100, you know, you'd be pretty hard pressed to hear them say, no, I'm not going to buy this. Okay. And that's because they now see that the problem they have actually does have a solution. It's affordable and it's something that they can pay for. So that's a DQ of 100. But let's take a look at what happens. And this is why DQ is so important. For most people, they actually start when we begin a sales conversation with them, they may start very low on the problem scale, like at a level of 3, let's say, or they may be a bit more savvy and they may be a level of 6, but very, very rarely have we ever found anybody beyond a level of 6. I mean, very, very rarely. And in fact, I can't even count on one hand number of clients, either full commercial clients or, for that matter, clients in the field in the development context, where they've actually calculated the cost of the problem, you see. So what's interesting is that if a person only has the awareness of that problem to a level of 3, and then the salesperson begins just literally pitching the solution, which oftentimes happens, is that they only have an awareness to a level of 3 of the solution. In other words, an appreciation of the solution is limited by the depth of the understanding of the problem they have, okay? And then if they're at a level of 6 on the problem axis, then they're limited to a level of 6, theoretically, on the solution axis. So our goal is really to have conversations with people to first bottom out the problem to as close to a number of 10 as possible. And you'll see why that is. Okay, so for example, if it's a 3 by 3, is the simple equation there, is you're going to have a DQ of 9, which is incredibly low. And people are just literally not going to be interested at all in purchasing a product or a service from you. If it's 6 by 6, so in other words, if you take the conversation a little further, or they are at least aware of the problem to that level, and someone begins to pitch a solution to them, then you have a DQ of 36. Which might seem, you know, it's like 6 out of 10. Well, you're 60% of the way there. It may seem like a good number, but actually, when you multiply it out, that 36 is only 36 of 100, or a little over, a little under 40%, or a little over 33% of the way there, which means that there's about 65% doubt. Questions haven't been answered. awareness isn't there, you say. And so therefore people at that point oftentimes will give you financial objections. A lot of times you'll hear, I need to ask my spouse. A lot of times you'll hear, that sounds pretty good. I want to think about it for a while, you say. And so in order to sell well, especially with products that are behavioral change products, where people may have received these for free in the past and now they're being sold these products, or they've never seen them before, the real way to develop a desire for change is to focus on the problem axis first, and then take a person on a journey at least to a level of 9, where they get down to 9, 10, because then they'll develop a DQ of 81, and almost always that's going to be a yes, you say. So this is the theory behind DQ selling. And what we want to say is that when people quickly pitch a solution, which is where customers want to start oftentimes, what are you selling? How much is it going to cost? Or where the salespeople want to start oftentimes, which is on the solution, and begin pitching it. You say, then what ends up happening is that you can begin, like say for a client is down at a level of 3, you can pitch until you're blue in the face, your great solution. But if you haven't taken that level of awareness of the problem down beyond 3, they're only going to get to a level of 3 of an awareness and appreciation for the solution you're offering. And the same thing with 6, et cetera, you say. So fundamentally, this doubt that's here is what's erased when you have salespeople that are trained in and managed to and developed into people who really know how to have a conversation based around the problem first, you say. And then the solution can be fairly rapidly introduced, quite frankly, okay? So the right steps in the right order builds decision intelligence, okay? So just as a recap, first you want to start with the problems the customer has, because when you do that, then the impact on the client is they develop concern, greater concern, because they have greater awareness now of things like disease or some of the concerns they have about getting sick, or the impact on their family or children, et cetera. When you really bottom out the cost of the problem, you actually put a dollar figure on it. That's actually the gold standard, is to do that. Is you'll develop a sense of urgency in the client. In other words, or the client will develop a sense of urgency, I should say. And in that case, they really, really want to solve the problem quickly. I'm reminded of when I, as an illustration here, when I was off in one of my trips around the world doing this work, I got a frantic email from the man who takes care of my house. He was saying, Scott, we just got a bill for $880 for the water. And, folks, my water bill is normally about $30 or $40. So obviously I knew there was a problem and there was probably a leak, or some faucet was turned on. So the bottom line was, if that had happened to you, you probably would have done exactly what I did, and that very urgently contact the water company and find out what's going on, you say. So when you are able to put things in terms of money, it has a way of objectifying the problem and really accelerating people's understanding of it, okay? And then you can get into the solution, which is then developing confidence in people that they see a solution that actually fits a well-understood problem. And then finally, what is the value of the solution, when you calculate it and you show them what it's going to be worth over a period of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever the lifespan of your product or service is, then they're willing to spend. Even very poor people will be willing to spend, because they will prioritize this as an important investment for them, okay? So that's a little bit about DQ. And I just wanted to say, again, thank you for allowing us to come on here today and to talk about this a bit. And I think we're going to hear from some of the other members of the panel now about how they sell and how they sell well. But bottom line is that selling well requires real understanding of what good selling looks like. And it really requires you and all of us on here to become as expert as we can about selling, even though it's not something that we may know how to do very well because of our career experience, okay? So thank you very much, Kiersten. Back over to you.
Thank you so much, Roy. That was excellent, like very informative. We're now going to pass over to IDE to hear some experiences from applying this in the field and on building their sales capacity. So we'll pass over first to Hilda. Hilda's the acting head of evidence and analytics at IDE in Ghana. She's an expert in monitoring and evaluation, and she's passionate about empowering women at all stages of the organizational ladder. And today, Hilda's going to share with us about IDE's experience in Ghana with selling sanitation, selling toilets, and building sales capacity. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Kiersten. I don't know if you would like to project the slide that was sent to you by Sarah. So whilst Kiersten is actually trying to project, I'll just go ahead to start. So I would first of all speak about IDE in general, what we do in terms of wash, then narrow it down to SanMarksII, that is IDE Ghana's wash project, which I am to talk more about. So who is IDE? IDE is International Development Enterprise, and is actually an international nonprofit and social enterprise incubator that believes the best way to end poverty is to power entrepreneurs. So how do IDE do this thing? So we do that by coaching businesses that improve the communities and stimulate the market ecosystem in which they operate, helping them to succeed and then to multiply. Currently, IDE's Watch project is being run in 6 countries. We have Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Ghana, Cambodia, Nepal, and Vietnam. And IDE actually, okay, Kiersten, next slide, please. Okay, so IDE actually focuses on 4 major pillars in terms of our implementation of our WASH projects. First of all, we believe in starting with the people. And how do we actually achieve starting with the people? So we use human-centered design methods to understand people's lives and their barriers and accelerators to accessing safety managed wash services and solutions. So our products are usually focused on our clients or our customers. And we do that through using the HCD approach or the human-centered design approach to actually understand what the needs of the people are, the problems they are facing. Then after understanding that, we actually design to the context of the people. So we ask the people what they want in wash products and services. Then we prototype and iterate on designs, incorporating frequent user feedbacks until we have a final product that is affordable and desirable by our customers. So we also believe that business delivers. And in that, we mobilize private sector by building strong business case for marketing wash products and services to the poor people. So we reduce the risk of market entry for local wash businesses and entrepreneurs. And we also build connections between various key actors in the wash sector. Then finally, we believe that in everything you should have results should actually rule. So we collect and analyze real-time data on quality, cost effectiveness, and performance using a cloud-based information system that allows us to actually prioritize investment in wash space that work and then eliminate those that do not work at all. Next slide, please, Jen. Okay. So up to date, IDE have actually achieved impacting the life of over 9 million individuals across these 6 countries we spoke about. And we've been able to give solutions to about 1.8 million people or households. We've been able to design about 1.8 products for households. And we've also been able to increase retention by $11, as you can see on the screen. Next page. Okay, so now I am going to narrow it down to IDE SanMarksII, which is currently operational in Ghana and the northern parts of Ghana. Next slide, Kiersten. Okay. So SanMarksII is basically a social enterprise being incubated by IDE Ghana. And the focus of SanMarksII is to fulfill the need of sanitation in rural Ghana with products designed in partnership with customers and local manufacturers. So in IDE Ghana, SanMarksII, we are able to leverage key assets to drive adoption of affordable, lasting sanitation solutions across the region and even beyond the region. So some of the key assets we leverage on is effective sales and marketing. So we actually leverage on aspirational, recognized, and trusted brand with a motivated and incentivized sales force doing sales of our sanitation products. Then we also have a reliable delivery system where through partnership with local toilet businesses, we recruit, train, and then assure quality of the product we actually deliver to our customers. Then after all that, we also have a developed in-house credit financing accessible to customers. So this allows the customers to actually purchase the wash products and then pay in installments over a period of time. Next slide, please. Okay. So up to date, what has been the impact of SanMarksII in IDE Ghana, in Ghana? So up to date, SanMarksII in Ghana have been able to reach about 70,000 individuals in households, and women consisting of 35,000 of those households reached. Then we've been able to sell toilets of about 9,000 in northern Ghana and some parts of southern Ghana. We've also been able to give opportunities to entrepreneurs to make more profit. About 83 entrepreneurs has been trained and actually implementing actively our products across our operational areas in Ghana. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we achieve this? So Scott was actually talking about what WRP does. So some years back, IDE Ghana had the opportunity to engage the services of WRP, and some of the things that has been learned from them and is being implemented is the RACE, that is result equals attitude, competence, and then execution. So this has actually been infused in the training manual for our sales agents. So sales agents are actually trained on how to have, sales agents are actually trained on how to have great attitudes in terms of sales. So how do we do that? We train them to give customers the listening ear. We train them to let go of bad characters and pick good ones, or bad habits that can help, and pick good ones that can help their performance. And some of those habits are developing the habits of patience and then avoiding habits of arrogance towards our customers. Then in terms of competence, sales agents are actually trained on how to use our site seller. So the site seller is what we actually use in marketing our wash products to households. So they are trained on how to use the site seller to create customers' awareness of the problem of open defecation, and then also to provide them with a ready solution to the problem by introducing the customers to SanMarksII as the one-stop shop for their sanitation needs. Then in terms of execution, sales agents are trained on how to stay focused on closing their sales, the exact activities that are needed to be able to close sales, and then the effective sales channels they should use in order to make this sales an effective thing. So some of the sales channels that are used by them includes door-to-door sales. So in door-to-door sales, it could either be a one-to-one sale or a household sale or a group sale with not more than 10 people. Then we have street activations where sales agents are usually expected to actually walk a particular street and then hand out flyers and also educate people on the problems of open defecation, and also introduce them to SanMarksII as the solution to open defecation for their households. Then there are market storms where sales agents and even sometimes all staff of IDE Ghana actually hit the market to speak to people, hand over flyers, and then educate people on open defecation and where they can get a solution to that. Then community storms, where sales agents move to a specific community just to hand over flyers, enter house to house, educate people on opidification and how to actually curb that through purchasing a wash facility from Sama. The next slide, please. Okay, so basically, how has this training, this knowledge from WRP, which is being infused in our trainings, helped over time? So sales agents that actually had the opportunity to have a first-hand training from WRP actually ended up excelling so much in their sales that the organization recognized them by pushing them up the ladder. So they grew from sales agents to becoming sales managers and even to becoming regional sales managers. Then also the WRP, the race continues to be something that is implemented throughout our project. We still have intention to use those training manuals and training skills gotten from WRP throughout our sales period till the project's life is exhausted, or even beyond the project life. But however, there is one major challenge that is being faced, and that is around sales agent retention. So sales agents are trained, but mostly do not stay long on the project. You see them exiting after a short while of engagement with IDE Ghana or with Sama. So they exit with the knowledge, and a new batch has to be trained again. So I think basically this is what IDE Sama does in terms of sales, and some of the knowledge from WRP that has been inculcated in our trainings and sales moving forward. Thank you. I think I will hand over to Kiersten.
Thank you so much, Hilda. That was excellent to hear that experience. And from there, let's move straight over to Imran. So Imran's the Capacity Development Specialist at IDE's SanMark program in Bangladesh, which is actually co-funded by UNICEF. It's targeting 1.2 million improved toilet sales through developing the sales capacity of 3,000 sanitation enterprises. And Imran's been involved with developing the marketing and sales strategies. So today he's going to share with you a bit about his experience. Thank you, Imran.
Thank you, Kiersten. Start my slides, please. Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone from IDE Bangladesh. Today we are here to share our lessons of sales of sanitation products in Bangladesh. And you see the photo. This is a group sales meeting photo that we use site seller there, and the latrine producer is creating the demand. So we'll talk more about it in the next slides. Next slide, please. This is also another photo of the group sales meeting. The latrine producer is selling the toilets to the customers, and he's also using site sellers, and you see the product. This is because of the customer segment he's targeting here. So this customer segment needs this kind of toilet in terms of their willingness to pay and their financial capacity. Next slide, please. So since 2012, when IDE Bangladesh started its sanitation program, so IDE Bangladesh so far implemented 12 wash programs. And in the SanMark systems, that the project I work in the first phase, we trained 500 plus sanitation enterprises. And in this second phase, we trained around 900 sanitation enterprises. So from the first phase and this year, total 250,000 latrines have been sold to the community, and around 1.2 billion people impacted, which around 50% are women. Next slide, please. So this is the Bangladesh map at the right, you can see. And in the SanMark phase 1, we worked in 6 districts. sorry. And in the SanMarksII, we work in 25 districts. And in Bangladesh, we have 64 districts in total. And excuse me. And you see the color code here. And we have direct interventions in 25 districts and indirect intervention in 10 districts. And we are targeting to sell 1.2 million toilets by 2024. Next slide, please. So this is the project, and you see that we have 3 lead farms in partnership, over 1,000 dealers and retailers, 30 business networks, and we'll train 3,000 latent producers, and we'll reach 1 million customers and 4.5 million household members directly. Next slide, please. So we have some challenges that we faced since our first phase, and in 2017 we received the training from WFP. So in the group sales meeting, we used the DQ sales method that Scott actually described earlier, and it starts with a problem and then cost of the problem and then the solutions. So what happens that you sell well when the decision makers are present. So this is one of our biggest challenge to ensure the presence of the household head or decision maker, because the timing of the group sales meeting usually in the daylight, and you know, Bangladesh is a agricultural based country and they are farmers, so they go out to the field, and some of them are engaged with some other income generating activities, so the timing is not appropriate. But you know, we have limitation, we cannot go for a group sales meeting in the dark. And the latent producer business nature in Bangladesh is that they are very much reluctant to go out to their center for creating any demand. Some of them are doing right now after getting coaching from us on the DQ sales and the customer segments. So they see an opportunity, business opportunity, so they are now going out, but most of them, they're reluctant to go out of their center. Another challenge we face is that the rainy season, and rainy season is considered an off-peak season in sanitation business, because when you are trying to dig a pit or install a latrine in the rainy season, the groundwater level is very, very high, so you cannot install it appropriately. So households do not want to install toilets in the rainy season, and that's the reason why the sales are very low during the rainy season. And another issue we face is that free or subsidy trend. In Bangladesh, you know, thousands of NGOs are working and they are giving away free toilets. Even from the government side, they have a subsidy trend. So the households who are poor and marginalized, and some of the households who are close to the government body or the NGOs, they actually wait for the free or subsidized latrine. So, and that's why they are not willing to spend money to buy a latrine. And for the sales agents, we tested sales agents in 2 phases. In the first phase, we didn't provide any kind of monetary support to the sales agents. And the contract with the latrine producer and the sales agent was that sales agent will sell the latrine and they will get a commission. And you know, the product cost or the latrine cost in Bangladesh is very low. Like the basic option starts in $15, and the sales agent get the commission of $1.25 if they can sell one. So what happens if they sell 2 latrines per day? It's not enough earning for them. So sales agents mostly they drop out and they stop working. And the other challenge is that, and this is the most important challenge, is that the commission model for the sales agent. The sales agent and the latrine producer both do not have any, you know, kind of smooth business model that they can identify who are the customers coming from the sales agent facilitation. And also the sales agent do not have that kind of opportunity to inform the latrine producer that, okay, these are my customers. So often what happens, the latrine producer often denies, okay, I didn't see your customers in my center, but the sales agent, she or he says that, okay, my customer is there and you sold latrine, so give me the commission. So there is a mismatch in the commission model. The next slide, please. Though we have so many challenges, but we see some opportunities, and problems are the opportunities for us, even in the sales and even in the professional life. So what we are planning is to revise the group sales meeting steps. Like when we are spending one day to invite all those household head and they promise they will come, but for professional reason they cannot join the meeting. And most often they send one of the representatives who are not decision makers. So now we are thinking that we shouldn't spend that one day, and we'll go and instantly do the group sales meeting with the household members, those are present. So it will help us to minimize the time and cost of a group sales meeting. And the timing of the group sales meeting, we are working on that, and we are finding out the appropriate or free time of the farmers and the rural households. And we are planning to conduct the group sales meeting during that particular time. And some LPs are practicing the group sales meeting, and we are actually helping them to grow, and we will actually show them to the other latrine producers so that they can learn. And often spoke with Scott, and he suggested something to turn the off-peak season to the peak season. So we are working on that. And identifying the appropriate customer segment was another challenge. But we have the study of the customer type of customers available in the rural areas. So now we are mapping out all those customers first, so that we can go with the appropriate customer segment. And as I mentioned earlier, that we are testing with different model of sales agent engagement, and we'll move forward with that in our next phase. And this COVID-19 situation actually supported us to increase the sales more. But we need to see what are the percentage of increasing the sales. Thank you.
Thank you, Imran. That was great. Thank you to all three of our presenters so far. We're going to quickly move over to just hear an experience of one or two of the innovators within the accelerator programs. We'll start with Kiersten. So Kiersten is the COO at Kidame Mart, who's a member of our second cohort. And they have a network of over 3,000 women sales agents in Ethiopia that reach over 2 million customers, selling fast-moving consumer goods to the rural last mile, to the areas not typically served by markets. And a few months ago, they took on a new challenge to use their expertise and network to shift from fast-moving goods such as soap to try and start selling toilets, which is quite a shift. So Kiersten, thank you for joining us. Perhaps you can tell us briefly about your experience with this shift, and if anything you've heard so far today has resonated with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian. This panel, our CEO and myself have been texting back and forth how helpful this has been, especially what Scott Roy had to say. So like Christian said, we're a last mile distributor in Ethiopia, and we're very experienced in selling fast moving consumer goods. And, our company was born out of this demand that rural customers wanted better products and didn't have access to them. So we're very successful in our sales of those fast moving consumer goods. Some of them are wash products like soap, But now we've started to sell, latrines and water filters, and we're experiencing a lot of challenges. But this whole idea, like this whole DQ model, is really interesting, this customer-centric model, and we're missing some of the steps, like having the customer identify what their challenge is and having them cost it out. I am really excited to take these learnings and then bring them back to our team and retrain some of our women on those projects to see, will that bring us more success? Because we've really been challenged on some of these more expensive, higher impact, but less widely demanded goods.
Kiersten, that's great. That's a really good reflection. Grace is from the UNICEF EAPRO Young Changemakers Accelerator Program over in East Asia and the Pacific. She has a startup in Thailand that's developed a new type of light hand washing and soap that's more environmentally friendly. Grace, has what you've heard so far, how's it resonated with you, and how are you thinking about selling your product?
So it's really interesting about hearing about the whole DQ model, but in Thai context, sometimes it's kind of like how the fish can't see the water because we're so habituated to it. So in this case, it's the hand washing product that in the market, and which for the most part is related to water culture and lifestyle of the people in Thailand. So it's really hard for a small startup like us to break the status quo and the perception of hygiene that leads to their purchase decision. So because they might not be aware of that the current product out in the market can be optimized to be more sustainable. So we're planning to use the online marketplace and social media platform to tell our story and let us know that Term-Naam is here, and we would like to help people to make a better and more informed decision towards how they can clean their hand and in order to promote a more sustainable hygiene choices.
Great, thanks, Grace, and we look forward to supporting you how we can. Finally, let's move over to Dr. Felix. He's also a member of the second Duke UNICEF cohort, and he's developed a low-cost hand washing station for schools. Typically, these are donated to schools, but Dr. Felix is creating a path where he sells them at full price. So, Felix, did you have any experience with face-to-face sales before this project, and how are you finding it so far?
Thank you, Kiersten. Actually, I'd like to share just very quickly that before we started engaging to sales, previously we struggled so much hard to get the funds to support our project. So we wrote a lot of proposals and couldn't win the funds. So it reaches a stage we managed to secure a grant, and unfortunately, after the grant has been spent over, we couldn't manage even to continue producing our hand washing stations. So it's then we came up with the idea that it's the time now we have to commercialize our project so that we can ensure sustainability. And it's then we came up with a model where we were manufacturing the hand washing stations and sell them to school, and the schools are paying back to us on monthly installments. So by doing this, we have managed to access some capital, some funds to continue manufacturing more hand washing stations and even reach a wide population. We no longer depend on the grants, but we depend on ourselves. And from this now, we have come to learn out that selling the product has ensures proper usage of the product, as the users they feel accountable, they are responsible in using it properly, as well as being responsible even for the maintenance. Rather than giving them for free, they would expect getting it next time for the free. So by selling it, the product to the beneficiaries has increased the users' accountability, and they're happy to use it. It also opens or increases our corporate linkage, as it ensures a sustainability plan. Most of the companies want to invest their money in a project that has a sustainability plan. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Felix. We've run slightly over. The next session has actually just started on staying lean and COVID resiliency. So we'd encourage any of you available, if you would be interested to join, to move over to there. If you're interested to explore this topic further, we will be sending out the recording along with some resources and some links. For our innovators, the Whitten and Roy partnership are offering 1 hour free consultations, which we're very grateful for, so thank you. So thank you very much to all of our speakers today, and thank you for everyone that joined. If there are any questions that weren't answered, we'll put it in when we send out the notes later. So once again, thank you to everyone for joining us. Hopefully this was a good intro to the art of selling wash. Goodbye.